Hello and welcome to In the Court of the Wenton Knave. We've got here, it's time for the album, The ConstruKction of Light. All that crimsonising, all those projects, surely were leading up to this, weren't they? Expectation is a prison. Now the album. This is of course the penultimate King Crimson studio album. It probably will be, permanently, by the looks of things, we think. Bill Bruford is finally officially gone, but that was no bad thing, because of course he was making the awesome Earthworks Mark II. Tony Levin was unavailable due to touring with Seal, actually giving birth to the double duo, because that was who was left. And I think the Seal tour fell through and then Tony Levin was available, but they decided to stick with the double duo as a thing. This is what's happening now, which Tony Levin agreed with. And I think actually, surely at this point, Peter Gabriel was reactivated, finally finished his 10-year album. That would have been a problem, surely, you know. So the duos are Fripp and Ballou. They're doing what they do, they've been doing since 1981, and Gunn and Master Lotto looking forward. Now this is a thing, so it means there's a kind of a yin and yang in the band, and there's a question mark about what this represents, which I want to talk about. And then, disaster. Ballou left the band, sort of. It was a big commitment plan, you know, the plan was the 3-year, the Journey to 2003, or whatever it was going to be called. It wasn't called anything. But that was what happened anyway, actually, 3 years, so you know. He doubted his role because he saw Project 3 as a thing. He'd come to see Project 3 and well, what's he going to do? So, what's the solution? What will you do? Well, you have a chat about it and you work it out, don't you? Unlike, you know, E.G., who just do it in secret. People still do. It's strange how, you know, we don't communicate. All you have to do is communicate and the problem is solved. Fine. And the answer is, this isn't a project, this is written stuff. The other answer is, basically you've got Project 3 but with Ballou doing solos and cool chugging riffs, which is great. But that's not on here. This was a major undertaking. As I said, you know, Expectation is a prison. Effectively it's 2 years of rehearsal of half this album. The whole process dictated on the internet. I think that was a mistake. It's a good album, not their best album. It's comparable to Beat in that there's some absolutely fantastic stuff on there, but somehow it doesn't do justice. Somehow it's not the production. With Beat it's easy because it's like 80s production, but it's not the production. Production's good. Fripp's quote was, a flawed album with several gems. I think Bill Riflin said it's the map, but it's not the treasure. That's a good way of putting it. But yeah, so but what about the project? Surely this is the outcome of the project, and it isn't. This is the album they would have made in '97, isn't it? I think so. It's not really post-projects at all. All those themes were already there right at the start, before they'd done the projects. So that's weird. Why is that? It's like they had to make this album. They had no choice. They could have made it in '97, they could have made it in 2000, they could have made it in 2010, it still would have been the same album. They have to do it before they could get on and do the definitive one. You know, and Fripp started talking about reinventing the wheel, you know, because it sounds like King Crimson. For all that, yeah, it sounds like King Crimson. Fripp did say he felt the crimsonness during the sessions, the Crimson King, which he felt in 1969. And there is something definitively crimson here. I think it's in the projects really, though, so perhaps that's where it's coming from. So, you know, there is something definitively crimson, but it's not presented definitively. That's the best way to put it. But, you know, ultimately it's a heavy, it was at the time modern sounding record. Fripp had been listening to stuff like Korn and things like that, and it's got that very big guitar dirginess, which is good. Fripp's written a lot. Now this is the thing, isn't it? When a Crimson starts, Fripp writes about 1.5 songs and then lets the band go. But here, well, he's certainly written more notes by the sounds of things, a lot more notes, which I think paid off. Out of context, I think the problem perhaps is the context. You know, out of context, it's great. So I can't quite put my finger on it. You know, but the best is still to come. That's the point. Strangely, Stuart Lee did a review of this because he was trying to be a proper columnist and whatever. Really struggled with the fact that it's good and it's prog. He was just completely confused. How can this be prog and not be terrible? I know prog is terrible. You know, and he named Rick Wakeman in his review, of course, who you know, as we all know, isn't really prog at all. So he didn't know anything. He doesn't know anything. Stick to comedy. Yeah, so here we are, you know, Seizure hasn't found a home. Deception of the Thrush hasn't found a home. They didn't use it. The best thing they've been doing, and they didn't use it. It's just bizarre. As with the projects, you know, Trey Gunn is absolutely vital, very important. especially on the title track, I think. It's interesting how he says he didn't consider what he was doing in the double duo to be bass. He wasn't playing bass. And maybe in doing the double trio and the projects, he found a thing, something, and that's what he created, you know. So yeah, the first song is Prozac Blues. Yeah, it's a Crimson blues, you know, in the vein of Ladies of the Road and whatever. It's interesting that, you know, Fripp wrote a Crimson blues riff, and then Adrian got the blues, unfortunately. You see, doing this in the public gaze, showing the development over the internet, and I think the logic of doing that, like with the diaries, is to show there's no magic happening. You know, Robert Plant fell asleep and the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven were upon him as he saw the sunrise. You know, there's a star above, are you watching Stairway to Heaven? It's a mundane, mechanical process of writing music. You have, well, put that there, let's try putting that there, now try it around there. Yeah, that sounds alright, you know, and at the end, they have changed the world. And they do that over the internet, and the band are actually, which they shouldn't, what they really shouldn't have done and what they were doing was that some of the band were actually looking at what people were saying, particularly Elephant Talk, which was the mailing list of the time, which you got by email. People were questioning Blues' competence. They were saying, is he good enough for King Crimson? He's a pop singer, or I don't know what they were saying, what they were thinking. How can, I mean, Ballou revitalised the band in '81 and kept, there will be no King Crimson now without Adrian Ballou. How can he not be good enough? And that guitar playing, you know, how can that not be good enough? And so this really affected Adrian Ballou. He thought, well, am I good enough? Of course you are, for God's sake. So he invented this character called Hooter J. Johnson, and singing with a silly voice, bluesy voice thing about depression is. It's a bit jarring, particularly the first track. But that's kind of the point, and that's a good idea to put it there, I think, in a way. And it's great. Lots of fun. And what a solo. You know, this is full of fantastic guitar solos. Track 2. It's actually track 2 and 3, so it's split into 2 because you've got the first section and you've got the vocal section. The vocal section, of course, is the bit they don't play anymore. The ConstruKction of Light. This is one of my favourites. The interlocking guitars are back, interestingly, and this is the thing, it's more of that stuff and the heavy riffs. So like, we've got the thrack thing and we've got the discipline thing, and there isn't the projects thing. It's weird. So classic 80s Crim, in a sense, but with the heavier rhythm section, so there is a bit of that there. But it's really what they were doing with thrack rather than projects. But you know, it's that Ballou melody, and how does he do it? How does he play that and sing it at the same time? And his melody and his voice is just as good. It's brilliant, fantastic. Track 4 is Into the Frying Pan. Country construction, projection, all that stuff. This is the last song in the catalogue I don't like. I don't like Happy Family. I don't like The Howler. I don't like Model Man, and I don't like Into the Frying Pan. Why that is, you know, how can you not like Into the Frying Pan? There's nothing wrong with it. I don't know. I don't like the weird phasing effect on his voice or whatever it is. Much microtonal, I think, because it keeps it out of tune. But you know, what they were doing with that in the projects was awesome. They turned it into a song. It's just... Track 5 is FraKctured. That's right, FraKctured 2. And as with Thrack, but much more so on this album, it's looking back. They weren't able to, or didn't need to move forward as much as they should have done, because they'd done the projects and then they had to go back and do this first, kind of thing. But this was actually originally titled Larks, Tongues, Aspic Part 5, and it was actually, I think it was Tony Levin, who of course wasn't on the album but must have been around and heard it. He pointed out, actually, that sounds more like Fracture than Larks, Tongues, which it does. It's an interesting structure in that it has a build up and a payoff and then a build down. So it's structured like that, rather than the original Fracture, of course, is structured like that. It's very hard to play. There's a very fast middle section which is extremely difficult, and it pushes Fripp to his limit. That's the limit of what he can do physically, and that in itself is exciting and frightening. But obviously, that's something like that. To hear it performed live is always going to be a better thing, which I didn't get to do in 2000 because I went to London and they didn't play it. And I remember that really good vibes at the start of the concert, and Fripp points in the air, turn him up, yay, turn him up. And he got to the first improvisation. Something happened in the first improvisation. I can't put my finger on what it was, but I knew something, the vibe wasn't right, something. And I wasn't surprised I knew the set list, you see. I shouldn't have done that. I should have been surprised, but I knew the set list. And when it got to FraKctured, Pat Mastelotto looked at Fripp and I knew, and he shook his head, no, I'm going to play it, and they didn't play it. And Fripp didn't explain it, why he felt he didn't want to play it and it wasn't a good vibe. But I felt it there. Whether that was the same thing he was feeling, who knows, but I felt there was a weird vibe there. Unlike when I saw them in 2015, which was just glorious, which was wonderful. So anyway, track 6, The World's My Oyster Soup Kitchen Floor Wax Museum. What a fantastic title. Evil, dirty riff. There's great humour in here, not just in the lyrics, but in the music. Spiderfingers, play it for me, Spiderfingers. The rhythm section is actually in 11. It's actually playing in 11. Just fantastic wordplay again, classic Blue. It is wonderful. And typically, of course, it's much better live. Japan 2003 is great. I think they called it A Song That's Falling Apart, or maybe that was Dig Me. And this is that kind of thing in that it's it's just chugging along. It takes quite a lot to follow what's going on. Actually, it's really good, really successful. Sorry, track 7 to 9 is Larks, Tongues and Aspic Part 4, and this is Larks, Tongues and Aspic Part 2 times 10. It's just more of it, yeah. Fripp and Ballou playing in different times for a verse. Might be Adrian Ballou's greatest solo, or maybe there's better live solos of that, which would be his greatest solo, maybe. And there's more references back as well. The solo section, of course, is very much a reference to Red, which is interesting. And then we have track 10, Coda, I Have a Dream. Mastelotto does his thing, stuff. What's so good about Pat Mastelotto? Well, this, put it on and listen. This gives Larks, Tongues and Aspic literal meaning. Controversial. The negative march of humanity. All these 4 pieces of music. There's controversy in the lyrics, linking certain things with others, which I won't go into, which led to Ballou not doing the words live. Actually, he just took them out and that was it. It was originally an acoustic song. Actually, it was the ballad for the album, and they turned it into that. So that's for that reason the album doesn't have a Crimson ballad. Actually, so there you go. So track 11 is ProjeKct, Heaven and Earth. I'm not going to review that here because that's the yang. This was the yin, that was the yang. There's 2 halves to the double duo. The other album, which I'm going to do next week, which it might get sort of forgotten now, sadly, is the Mastelotto gun element to it. And I'll see you next week.